Class notes 10-1. Not the entire class, Rochelle. 1, 2, 3. Rochelle, where are you going? To the office? Go to the office first, go ask them. Alright, yeah, go and ask, yeah. Rochelle, watch your bit. That's like 3 hands, listen, went up. 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and you have 4, right? Oh, 4. You have? Alright. Obama who's coming now, a leader, right? What is it that makes a leader a leader? Alright? No. Vision. Right? Now we have been talking about policies and strategies and how when we do our strategic position, we're gonna come up with strategic options. And then once we have come up with strategic options, we are going to do strategic implementation, which means that among other things, we're going to have to manage changes, alright? And to get the changes through, we need leadership, alright? And we can split out changes a little bit later for our further discussion, but for now we need that. So we have to get the changes through. So we're going to figure out how we can get changes done, and we need to figure out leadership, because one of the tricky things about leadership is leaders tend to have followers. But sometimes, because many leaders are elected, you sometimes get the impression that the leaders are actually following the followers. Because they give the followers what they want under the hope that they will vote for you and give you power. But leadership is more than just say winning an election. Leadership is more than just winning an interview in an office and so you get the CEO position. Leadership probably means getting changes. You just don't simply accept the status quo. Somebody has mentioned, you talk about vision, right? But it's not only just vision. Many of us have visions, but it's to get individuals to not only buy into the vision, but to adopt it as if it was their own, because that's the only way people will do what is supposed to be done. Yeah, if they can buy into it, right? It's a way to work through people to get things done, right? And therefore, it's not everybody thinks that kind of definition that we have of leadership. Now, there's a lot of talk about it. I when you read in the material, the management material and leadership, you're going to see a lot of topics on it. You're going to see a lot of names and leadership and management style, etc., etc., etc. A whole lot of them. We don't need to know the whole of them. Alright, we just need to know enough so that we can go in the exam and do it. Alright? So in our notes, for example, we mentioned some things around leadership. Initially, persons usually say, if you don't have certain traits, you can't be a leader. Alright? So one of them, for example, mentioned that you must be exuberant. You need to have this kind of attitude around you, right? So if you were shy, we almost say that, no, you can't be a leader. Too shy. Alright? You need to be able to talk. Alright? We talk about emotional stability, for example. And by the way, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points, roll it back. Somebody roll it back. How many again? That means we're not supposed to short. Yeah. Is that 4 or 1? Say one at the front here and one at the back. Alright. Yeah. So the 5 that we mentioned here are actually like 5, but that we could out of like 100. Alright? We're not really interested in the traits per se, just we're putting the traits so that you understand the idea that we talk about. We talk about trait theory, right? Emotional stability. And you might very well ask sometimes when you hear our Prime Minister speak, does she have emotional stability? When she will tell you that no boy, no girl, we don't really expect a leader to say that. The leader will tell us behind the background, right? But you don't really expect them to say that up front. Alright? Um, but for the most part, most persons have kind of distanced themselves from trade theory. Because even though I mentioned these 5 here, this is now a modern day kind of time. Because in the earlier days, traits used to be, for example, that you had to be white. You're not white, can't be a leader. Trait was that you had to be male. Not a male, can't be a leader. And so they have gotten rid of those parts of it. And you would have heard, but there are still elements of trait, even though people don't really talk about trait theory so much these days, there are still elements of trait around when person tell us that they're a type A personality. Only a type A personality will be a leader because they always want to be in charge and they will take charge of a situation and blah, 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 blah. And so people are saying you don't have to be a type A personality, a leader. Alright? So, yeah, we're still in a way talk about trait theory, but we're not generally accepted anymore. Alright? Then there are our behavioral theories as well. This is still, most of these ideas are still in force. One of the main ones come from McGregor. And McGregor have something called the theory X and the theory Y. Theory X says they hate to work. And your theory Y loves to work. Putting it simple. And because look at how we're so we're saying what does this have to do with leadership, but take a look at it. What it's speaking to is your staff. Hate to work, love to work. It means that your behavior as the manager depends on your staff's behavior. Alright? So if you're made up, your team is made up of theory X's, these are persons who don't love to work. So you know what you have to do? You have to document every single thing that they're supposed to do. You have to follow back at them every single time, or else they're not going to do it. If you tell them they need to enter something on the computer and they really don't know how to enter it on the computer, they're not going to try to figure out how to enter it. Alright? You as their boss now have to organize training for them to enter it. If you are fortunate to get your theory wires, the theory wires love to work. They say, go enter the thing on the computer. They need to go on the computer and figure out how to enter the thing on the computer. You see, them kind of people that know your management style has to change because you cannot micromanage these individuals. These individuals thrive on responsibility. And if you try to micromanage them, you are going to frustrate and demotivate them. Similarly, if you give these people responsibility, nothing will ever get done because they do not thrive on responsibility. Alright? So McGregor can help us to understand the appropriateness of the management styles that is in place. Alright? There's something slightly different from this, but still falls within this range. Contingency theory of management. So look on page 2, we speak to this. The contingency theory says there is no one best way to manage. Alright? So there is no one best way to manage. So if we were to look at management styles, there's no such thing as the perfect management style. Alright? What the contingency theory persons believe is that there are three things which determine the management style, or I should say the appropriate management style. Alright? The characteristics of the manager. What type of individual is that person? Is it somebody who follows details, loves to get things documented, Is it somebody who not really love them kind of thing there, but is somebody who sit down with people, is a relationship kind of individual, sit down with people, talk to them, if them and the persons can be on the same page, that's the way they believe that is the best way to manage. Alright? So it depends on the characteristics of the manager. Some manager want sit down and talk with people, some managers don't want to sit down and talk with nobody, just go to the work. Alright? I am not your psychiatrist. Alright? I am not your life coach. So if a motivation you want, you gonna pay somebody a road to motivate you. May I give you money, and you have a job when other people not have a job. You need more motivation than that, wrong job you in, and it's the wrong manager you're there with. Alright? Not voting on like you're doing. Alright? So look at the characteristics of the manager. I'm going to show this coming back a little later, because it might sound like why the manager and the needy, the manager, the wickedy. But again, we say according to the contingent, the people, that's not necessarily bad. Look at the characteristics of the manager. Look at the characteristics of the follower or the employee. And look at the situation itself. Alright? Are we, for example, that when we say the situation here, we mean the task or the job at hand. When we take a look at it, is it well defined that therefore everybody kind of know it's well documented, everybody know what it's supposed to do? In that case, why should the manager be holding your hands? Alright? The job simply enough. Is it ill-defined? If it's ill-defined, then maybe the manager does need to also focus on the task. Let's say that you need to find a way to get it done. Is it somewhere in between being well-defined and ill-defined, and maybe I need to manage the relationship very carefully. Alright? But these three things are important as far as contingency theory is concerned. And on page 2, we have a few ideas. And again, we just have it mainly for discussion purposes, not necessarily for you to quote any of these. I'll point out the one that can help you in terms of quotes and to answer questions. One of the very first ones we have there is from Fiedler. And Fiedler's ideas came up like donkey years ago, many decades ago, and persons are still using his concepts to this day. Fiedler actually, to determine, for example, like the characteristics that you have as a manager, there's a test that Fiedler has. Fiedler is there that is no more around anyway. But there's a test that he had developed that you could take, one of those psychometric tests, and it will determine the type of manager that you are. Alright? And it's based on something that he calls the least preferred co-worker, the LPC. And he asks you these set of questions, and he says, thinking about the answers, giving you answers, think about all somebody you have worked with before, and that consider that person. Find out if that person. Find out when you take out your work history. Find in your work history the person you consider to be your least preferred coworker. Whether it has been a manager, somebody your level, or somebody below your level, it really don't matter. Just identify that person in your head who is the least preferred coworker. So if you come out and you work with a whole of good people, find the worst out of the good people to answer. If you do unfortunately they work with pure bad people, find the worst of the bad people. Alright? And you use that person now to answer the question. Alright? And based on that, he will be able to tell you whether or not you're a manager, you're an individual who likes personal relationships, or you're somebody who prefers tasks. Personal relationship people, they must sit down and walk people dead, start talk and start out things and say, well, I want to call it what's happening. Right? And all of that, tell them da da da. Right? And she did a job late last night, and she had prepared a report, and her supervisor, no, I am, da 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 da. I'm gonna listen. Right? I'm gonna try to talk to her. Maybe I need to intervene and talk to some people. Some managers are really interested in that kind of thing, but some managers just want to get the job done. And the psychometric test will tell you if you're somebody who wants to get the job done. Alright? Some managers will be shy, some managers will be aggressive, those kind of things. Those are all the things we're talking about. We're talking about the characteristics of the manager. But what feedback is, so if we have a manager, right, and let's say they're aggressive and don't really want to hear a part of that, and everybody in the department wish we would rather talk to them and blah 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 blah, and they were all like criticizing him and saying he's a bad manager, people are saying he is not a bad manager. The problem is you have not given him the right followers, or you have not put him in the right situation. Or you know that there are situations where we don't want to have a discussion, we just want somebody to make a decision and get it done. Don't sit down a long talking, no lady. We want somebody to just make a decision. Other times we can have discussion around it, and other times when we get discussion around it, somebody will say, all right, these are the two options we face with. We go to option A, so tomorrow morning this, John, I want you to know tomorrow morning you prepare that letter to tell them that this, that, Alicia, me, you to do, and just give people stuff for them. And nobody think about it. Instead of, so who would do what now? So we need some letters to write. Who can write the letter for me? Do the work. Stop being friends. Right? Do the work. So see saying, yes, everybody in the office don't like the manager there, but it don't mean that that manager is a bad manager. It's just that based on his or her characteristics, then they know the wrong job. Which means an HR. Alright? HR should have. Alright? So that's Fiedler's opinion on it. There's another view still within and still encompasses many of these kind of things. When you look at Adair, it talks about his action-centered leadership. Adair says, listen, organizations need to get tasks done. Alright? These tasks we could call processes, for example, that they deliver goods or services to their customers. Alright? Managers need to figure out what tasks or processes need to be done. When the manager figures out what tasks or processes need to be done, for them to be done, check it. Every organization needs a team, or many teams. So they want to call them units, departments, divisions, whatever they think. Every organization accomplish the organization objectives in teams. So the next thing you now need to figure out who are the right individuals to go on the team. What are the team dynamics so that you can get the team to work together? Every team needs individuals. Not team, not that you come out of the blue, so I would have said this is a team. It is individuals who make up teams who get the task. Right? Again, no, it means that the manager's role is to figure out what is it that makes these individuals tick. What is it in terms of recognition? We talk about the cultural web, remember we talk about some of the symbols. What is it that these individuals want in terms of their symbols? Is it salary? Is it status? Is it responsibility? Is it physical things like cars? Those kind of things. We need to now figure out what the individual needs so that they can work as a team to get your objectives. So if you notice, my job then as a manager and my management style will change as I try to determine how do I get these objectives accomplished. Alright? So this is known as your action centered communication. Alright? Alright, here's something else now. Alright. Let's erase this. But on the page, this is something from Hershey and Blanchard. And this one now, alright. So make sure you're aware, if we're talking about contingency leadership, you're aware that this is the thing that contingency leadership is saying. Alright? It depends on the characteristics of the leader, which must match the abilities or characteristics and the willingness of the followers to do the job, whatever the thing is, and it must match the situation itself. So sometimes when we have bad leaders, it's because we have put the wrong leader with the wrong set of followers and the wrong set of circumstances. That's why they are bad leaders. Alright? Hershey and Blanchard give us a nice little thing that helps us to explain a whole lot of things. And the best way to talk about Hershey and Blanchard is actually just draw what they have come up with in terms of a grade that we are very familiar with in P3. You know, in P3 we draw a whole heap of grade. And the model is high and low, and the model is 4. Alright? So we're doing the same thing again, high and low and 4. Alright? So here are the things that we're going to put on this paper, Hershey and Blanchard. And put them in up here. Alright? Hershey and Blanchard, so we should look at this task. So we'll bring back the word task in there. This is low. This is high. I was speaking, we talk about task behavior. How much guidance do they need? Alright? We can also write it as whether or not they are able or they are unable. If they need a lot of guidance, it really means that they are unable. If they don't need a lot of guidance, it means that they are able. Alright? And so you can go in that set of directions. Alright? And up here now we speak about relationship behavior. this is talking about the amount of support that the followers may need. What it means that if they are down here, and this is also high and low, if they are down here, it means that they are willing, so they don't really need you to psych them up. Up here means that they are unwilling. Alright? Alright. So why am I doing all this? I thought it's something very, very, very easy to remember. Tell, sell, participate, delegate. Alright? Alright, so look at what is happening down here. Here we have a set of persons who are unable, so they need a lot of guidance. Alright? So they are unable. No, they're in the box here that says they're kind of willing. So because they are willing, what you should do now is to provide. So the term suggests that you should provide instructions. Alright? Otherwise, they won't do the things because, remember, they don't have the ability to do the things. So we talk about enter the thing on the computer, they really don't know how to enter the thing on the computer, so don't just leave that. So we're over here before, like a theory, Excels and those kind of things, they might probably say that it's a slight bit of combination of that, and I say, we really don't know how to do it, so don't just tell me to do it and leave me. I am not necessarily responsible enough to go run, go learn how to do it myself. Alright? So some individuals you need to get. Alright? And of course you must have close supervision. Alright? Up at the tail, look at them. They are unable to do the thing, unable, and they are unwilling. They will find a way to convince them. Yeah? Not necessarily. Alright, so here's what you're going to do. For them, explain the, the decisions. Alright. And provide opportunities for clarification. So if you notice what we're doing here is providing a lot of support to them. Where you can say to them, if you're not clear, just come back to me and explain. And I won't think you're stupid and you're fool and that must ship you out. Right? Just come back and ask. Alright? Don't worry, there's no such thing as a stupid question, so ask it anyway. Alright? And me will help you sort out the thing. So you make the try for it. So when we talk about the support here, that's what we're talking about. So we're not talking about you teaching them, you giving them instruction. It's like you're providing the little life coach support for them right here. So that's what I mean by relationship behavior. You're trying to get them to become confident. Alright? So you're trying not to shut them down too early. Alright? Last him nothing like last time I asked him, I was telling him that him embarrass me and the whole of his seat and that. So you sit down there and you're struggling, you can't figure out what the thing is, and you don't want to ask. Alright? And you know, sometimes it's happening in real life. I remember a group of persons. There was some stuff with some credit card system that was giving problems, and we had suggested some alternative. And most of the persons who worked there knew the alternatives, but it's like the new one, they've never really known. So write them an email and tell them, ready credit card in trouble, so use this other thing, and give them a link in the email, blah blah blah. You know, people do, particularly if I mean send on the email. Then call me and say, what them to do? Some say where you work. Some tell me where you work. Some say, nobody decided not using it and getting through. Yeah, them say other people are using it, but them shy and they don't know. But they don't ask the people that it looks like them stupid. So them prefer to call me. Now the funny thing is that I really didn't even know if he was a big idea. Come and get me advice. So we say, hold on there. I'm gonna transfer it. But we say, but what you need to do though is really and truly, instead of calling a third party. Friend somebody, ask somebody. I'm working under the person direct saying, ask the person, whatever. So this is what we're talking about, the support. Alright? Because unwilling means just follow me in them free. Alright? And you need to provide them with a way to reassure them. Build up the confidence. Alright? Look at the participate now. For the participate, we start to share ideas. Let me hear what you have. Talk about what I have. We kind of make it. So you can suggest ideas, I'm suggesting ideas. And facilitate decision making. Give them an option, an opportunity to make decisions. Alright? So when you hear your idea and you hear my idea, we get an option. So what do you think we should do? Based on all the risks and the challenges and the constraints that we face in, what should we do? So give them an opportunity. It gets to build up their confidence because you are there with them, holding their hands, and then get to make the decision. Alright? So what you get now is a set of persons who are turning from being shy and afraid to make decisions to guess what? People who can make decisions on their own. So now I don't have to be in that room anymore. I'm going to say, you in charge, you run the unit, you make the decision. Alright? So here now we turn over decision making. And responsibility for implementation. Alright, so our delegate now is just simply mean that we turn over the decision making and responsibility for implementation. We make them do because they have the experience. Now we have a set of persons who are willing and able. Alright? Take a look at what this is actually telling us, by the way. It's not a matter of just simply tell, participate, and delegate. Look at all the things that I mentioned that we're going through. Doesn't it suggest time? Doesn't it suggest training? Doesn't it suggest changes in confidence? So what that means from us, guys, is that we can't just simply have a situation, by the way, that we have staff that we used to tell what to do, and then one day, the very next day now, we change them to delegate. Cannot be done. Alright? It cannot be done because it requires time. So this is what the Hershey and Blanchard thing is telling us. That you don't move from tell to delegate. You don't move from tell to delegate. Alright? You need time. Time to build up your confidence, time to build up your experience. Till you can delegate. If I had founded an organization that persons had the skills and the willingness to do the work, I would have been a delegate from day one. But if I had started at 10 or I started at cell, I cannot turn them into delegate overnight. It cannot be done. It's not something that can be done. Alright? So what this means for us is that if we are reading a case, or even looking at it in our own organization, if we know what the management style in that organization was, if a new manager come now and say we just want to change it now from whichever one, tell or set to delegate, you need to stand up and say, cannot be done. And you know why it cannot be done? Take a look at, we mentioned about McGregor theory X and theory Y. We have, for you to be telling them is almost a bit like theory X, even for you in the cell part. Because look at it, them say that in the cell part, we say them don't know. And we say them unwilling. It's like they're lazy. How suddenly you turn somebody in a one theory Y when they were at theory X to begin. Yeah, but even so, still not happen overnight because we're there. They don't know how to do the task. Alright? So it doesn't happen overnight. Alright? When McGregor talks about individuals who are theory X's and individuals who are theory Y's, McGregor says that is their personality. Alright? That is who they are. So up here at the cell, I have theory X's. It probably means no matter how much we sell them, it's not going to work. Because they're not interested in working. They're not interested in learning. Alright? So look at the characteristics of the follower as well. You can come in with the greatest thing and say, oh yeah, I know about McGregor theory, X and theory Y, I know about this thing and contingent theory, right? But here's what I'm gonna do, guys, because I heard about Hershey and Blanchard, and I'm gonna turn all of you into people who can make decisions on your own. I'm a theory X, I don't want to make a decision on my own. I stress me out for. You just want to come, write up a little voucher here. When I lunchtime, come and lunch, come back, finish write up the one voucher when I write up the whole day, right? And go home. The ear now go great. You can't tell myself to do overtime because it's just this me to do. Right? When we go home, I'm not thinking about the work. Right? So, I don't want that managerial job. Did I tell them what the manager? Did I tell them what the supervisor? Right? Somebody has to do the work down here saying, I want to be that person. Exactly. That's just beautiful. Yeah. Right? This was my goal. This has always been my goal. To get my easy job. Right? When you look at messy all them people, they can't sleep at night time and they complain about this, right? They can't hold on to their relationship, guess what? Be cool with the relationship. Alright? I can't go to my girl whenever I want. Alright? There's no time that me have to stay late. Who have to stay late? Because I have a report to prepare. Me have to prepare the report. And that's part of the motivation is what motivates you. Remember, what motivates, for example, you Dwayne is not necessarily what motivates Gary. It's what Gary wants. So my self-actualization, according to Maslow, might very well be, we just want to have a job. We give me a consistent money every month. I'm not going to. What more than that I want? Because guess what? I want to hang out with my friends then. I want to hang out with my girl. Right? We want to go champs and all the sports events whenever they come on. If we didn't want a little high profile job, people are knowing me missing. If they want to lick a ordinary little thing in the car, nobody even know my name. I don't know, walk past them and leave work early, they don't even know say me. Right? So that's what we want to do. Right? I remember when I got my managerial job at NCDC, and before I got it, we have whole other things in my head as to what my managerial job means and what we can do. And then I said, become work late. We leave work early. Right? We're going to go on the road as long as we want, and this and that, and I answer to my body, and blah, 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 blah. Right? And I think it would have to work out, it's just that I was the manager for the wrong section. I was manager for one section now, where everybody needed to see me and to be yeah. If you trust me, I remember one time when my driver's license had expired and the policeman write me a ticket to the next morning, and I called the two bosses there until I said I got tax office, but I cannot drive without my license. And I said, all right, all right, all right, all right. And every minute that I was at the tax office, them called me. You don't leave the tax office yet. You don't leave the tax office yet. You don't leave. I said, when I leave the tax office, I will call you. 10 minutes later, she called me. You don't leave the tax office yet. And I'm saying, that's not the job I really want. I remember one time she said to me, and she was just, I know that's not the job I really want, you know. Right? Because the job, there was just two in a people's face. We couldn't disappear. So it was annoying. I have to go pick up my son, people are calling, where they? I would feel like I report more. Yeah, no, that I'm a manager. Tell me, I was a manager. Was the manager? I said, look, I'm going to get to a season, I wasn't a manager. I know every minute they're there. We're there, we're busy. Right? Saturday, we did I relax with my son, carry my karate, da 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 da. Where there? What do you mean when I'm there? No Saturday. We never know how to explain my movement for Saturday. Saturday is not mine anymore. No, it's just that the visa card, I get trouble and blah, 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 and we need somebody. I said, I'm on the road, my son. I don't need no computer, I don't need no Wi-Fi, we can't do nothing. So somebody's have to go figure it. Right? So I don't know when we lose my freedom, when I tell a manager. Alright? So sometimes these kind of things as well. So it doesn't matter who the individual is, some of them, no matter how you try to change them from being a theory exact, they can't change. It's their base personalities. And you guys would have encountered some people in our working experience that some people, no matter what, they're unfazed, they're unmoved, right? You don't see them try to get ahead, them just. Well, they would try and get ahead on their own, right? They're trying to get up themselves. Exactly, yeah. Yeah. At one, he wouldn't learn nothing to do because he was with the bank for donkey years. And everybody passed him on to a manager or supervisor or whatever it is. In his area of specialty, nobody will know where he would be. But he just would never move up. He like him lack ambition. And we call it lack ambition, but what if the guy was just self-actualized? Yeah. So it was quite cool. What did that even say? They said, wow, there's a way for them to send more money. Right? Because I know she has, I'm doing it for like 30 years now. Right? And I must say, the time I said, from leave high school, he was there. Right? And I must have wait on the redundancy. But every time the redundancy comes, they won't give it. Yeah. And I said, you know why? You know why you're not getting redundancy, right? Because you won't pass on the knowledge that you have to nobody else. So the mother said, nah, let's you up. You need to do that. I know you really love to work hard and all that kind of something there. But come up with a little book, with all of the code them and all that knowledge and pass it on to people, make somebody else take it over. And they were kind of right set other people know the things and you can't go there. And he did that. And he go here. And the thing I'll know it did not work. Self-actualization. So what am I trying to delegate to this guy? If I could put him in a training class all the time, not paying attention. He will wait, he will do. Alright? So sometimes, and again, I come back to this, we need to look at the characteristics of the follower. Alright? That's why I said everything that we talk about, we're talking about contingency theory, come up to these three things. It no matter which one, whether it be Adair, whether it be Fiedler, whether it be Herschel and Blanchard, these three things are. Alright? I'm sure some other terms are mentioned at the bottom of page 2. We talk about transactional as well. Transactional leader. That means that you are task oriented. And transformational. Transformation includes a bit of, there's also this type of leadership as well. Charismatic. Some person says Obama is charismatic, Portia Simpson Miller is charismatic. People gravitate towards them, but the charismatic leaders are not change leaders. People like you, but people won't follow you into any change. Alright? Transformational leaders now can bring about change, hence the name transformation. But you must have some charms. Both you. Alright? Curtis used to say that. I remember when Obama just started, I was in the leadership fight go on, and Obama actually looked like a transformational. He definitely had charm, drawn person to him, but you thought he was going to be different because he say he act differently. He can get Democrats and Republicans to work together, but that has not happened at all. Alright? So we kind of have to take away the transformational part from us, even with the charismatic part. Alright? Most leaders, persons have said, for example, that Edward Seaga never had any job. Michael Manley was charismatic. Right? Michael Manley could make you give up your last penny to him and feel guilty saying, no more, give him. Right? You apologize to him for not having any more. Right? He was that good. That man could speak. That man could convince you to do all of things. So some people say he wasted because he could have actually turned into more of a transformational leader at the time because nearly everybody in Jamaica, even those who never even voted for him, would have followed him. Right? But him kind of squandered it because he started to talk too much about socialism and communism and that instead of getting the country changed. Alright? So he wasted the opportunity. PJ Patterson, I'm not sure what it was. I guess it must have some charm also. Yeah, so it must have been some sort of charismatic. Yeah. Right? It was definitely not transformation. Right? When Holman started, when he was trying to portray himself as transformation. But I think one of his problems that he brought a charm. Yeah. Yeah. It's like I think we were giving him the benefit of the doubt, saying would have been transformation. And so I wanted to hear something different. And so he started to say something different and we said, oh yeah. But you can kind of look at it as like almost like he really do on the personality. Yeah. So I don't know, he's not really charismatic. But that don't mean say, guys, because he's not charismatic, that means so we say that either. It was not charismatic. Right? Because we have seen the charismatic ones and then yeah. Because we have seen the charismatic one them and then I help with. So maybe if we go with somebody without personality, yes? Except at the wrong country. Except at the wrong country. Right? so, so there's transactional and there's conservational. We can also mention a couple others. And the names speak for themselves. Authoritative and the opposite of it, democratic. Or yeah, something like our laser, yeah, something like that, yeah. Democratic means that you get participation from all, so it's something like closer to participate and a bit of delegation. Autocratic means that the leader makes all decisions. And so, the person have said that. I mean, persons, for example, look at the late Lee Kuan Yew from Singapore. Lee Kuan Yew was, Singapore was actually in a worse position than Jamaica. I'm not sure if many of you have realized that. Yeah, they were actually doing worse than Jamaica. And he was elected Singapore, and he was elected, and he was not democratic at all. He was a very much autocratic. And guess what? Singapore has long passed Jamaica. Yeah. But he wasn't communist. He wasn't a communist. He was just autocratic. So he practiced free trade and all that kind of thing there, right? It was capitalism that Singapore was using, but what he was all about the discipline. So you guys would have heard many years ago about when the American had gone, this American teenager had gone there, and he was chewing gum and was leaving gum on the seat or something like that, and then get lashes over it. Oh yes, yeah. Now look at us, for example. We have people that sell fish or crab or whatever it is around a hero circle. But they're not supposed to sell around there. And when they're done with them, they dash them on the street. And then we have to go clean it up. What if we don't lash them people?
And people, of course,
Yeah. It wouldn't happen. Because we allow it to happen all along. People in the parliament need lashes too. Yes. Right? When you set up things, I say, for example, that no hand cart mustn't be on the road, yeah, and people still are run hand cart on the road. Right? If in a Singapore, you get lashed, probably they are jail. Right? And guess what? That tell everybody, say, we're serious, no bother with it. Right? My mother, she's 80 something, but she was very active up to a few years ago. Till one day she kind of sneak downtown and never tell me she shall go downtown. And we take a taxi and go downtown. She said we go do some business, collect some money from somebody who was to work money down there, blah blah blah. We didn't actually know that she was down there. And she came out of the taxi, and as she came out of the taxi, a cart man who was sailing down the road with a cart hit her down. Police had to take her up and carry her to KPH. So of course I was at NTV and it so happened that the ABMs were giving trouble, so there was a crisis, and we get a call that my mother was in the hospital and she was hit down by a car. Yeah, somebody dropped off the tea. Screaming out and panic now, then I'm calling all of my brothers and sisters. I drop them I do there, I tell them to them go and look over the thing for me. And because I'm going to KPA, because mother was hit by a car. Right? Went down there for it. It wasn't a car. It was a cart. Right? But I also didn't want her to stay in KPH either because my brother had gotten sick down there and he had died at KPH. So by the time I have KPH, we love them. And the day when he died, it was his son who was my nephew who found out that the nurse was on the wall and the nurse didn't even know. So he's taking breakfast to his father, and him seeing in the most twisted and contorted way ever, and found out he was dead. Like nobody never knows. So he was dead there for hours and nobody never. Right? So we didn't have them up for that. So we didn't go down there and say, come take her. Come man, take her out to KPH, man, carry her on private hospital. But she's not staying down there. Right? But at the time she really couldn't move, and I think, because remember, them are old people and them born as so then we kind of did damage our hip or something at the start, and then from then on she really don't walk straight anymore. She kind of, and this was a cart. We shouldn't have left on the road and shouldn't have run at them kind of speed there. Big guy like, yeah. Right? Singapore and authoritative, that probably would not have happened. And I'm like, yeah, we'll probably look at it. Right? So, I'm not going to let the phone at all.
People spread out them things when you walk in the understand when you step near it, then you might end up lose your life.
Right. Right. So sometimes you wonder if Jamaica really needed an authority. I don't think you can even try and implement it now, because I think they probably make it go too far. Yeah. So it can not, yeah, it's not gonna happen. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So we're trying to bring in, for example, I was having a discussion with the whole NSWA pilot thing was happening. And I said, look how many years ago, many decades ago, other countries in the world had things where plastic bottles going at this speed. You did it. And I said, why is it that we haven't done that? And the person said, we know if we tried everything that Jamaica, we will resist it. But I said, decades ago, if we had tried it, who knows by now we would have. But if we keep putting it off and say, Jamaicans not going to do it. But start. We have no one getting it. Right. With even those, yeah. And you build it from there, yeah. Because the same Jamaicans, by the way, where we said not doing it enough. Put them in the United States, yeah. Canada, England, and what happened? Don't them do it? Separate the garbage. And then on a farm line, and to say, they go and see them have a farm line. Right? So it kind of look like it's just because them need to know that we're serious. And the minute we as Jamaicans know that the leader is serious, we don't have a drink. But if we go places where serious, we do it. Yeah. Yeah. Every single rule like there is. Right. So if you notice, then it's like, while every type of leadership might look a little bit bad or a little bit good or whatever, each one of them do have their drawbacks. So it depends again on the situation. Alright? So most persons these days kind of accept contingency leadership rather than one or the other. Alright? Again, it's still up for debate, but most persons probably will go contingency, adjust your management style to suit the follower and the situation. Alright, and then now I guess if you, as a manager, if you can really adjust your style, then maybe you're not the right manager for that position. Yeah. Alright. Let's take a quick look on also on page 3. This is your own job design and staff development. Not going to go long on it. But read what job design is, the process of combining tasks and responsibilities to form complex jobs and the relationship of jobs in the organization. Alright? And it comes from the idea, because back in the days, the early part we mentioned here from Frederick Taylor and scientific management, what Frederick Taylor had done in terms of scientific management was to break down, he can break down processes, tasks into its smallest unit. And the responsibility for doing that lies with the management. When you break it down into those tiny units, you can assign them to individuals. Again, Frederick Taylor says it is the management who will know which individual can do which task. The management will also tell you how to do the task because since they are managers, they know more than you, the worker, doing the job. Alright? And all you do is assign, I guess you probably do like psychometric or whatever, you train individuals and say, your job is just to bolt in the chairs in the cars. Your job is to put on the tires on the cars and nothing else. Based on what I look at you, I don't think you can do anything else but put on tires on cars. Alright? So everybody got their own specific set of work. And guess what? It seemed to work. Because, for example, like Ford Motor Company and those kind of places took off, right? Where people then started to actually increase production, mass production, and started coming in with a bit of the industrialization. Persons were doing very specific jobs. Costs started to fall. Revenues, profit was going up. The workers themselves now started to get richer because they were getting bonuses because they were accomplishing the jobs fast. So what was the problem? The problem was that the workers would actually feel like they need to kill themselves. People are get sick and stay on because they say, if I have to go to work and put on one more tire, I'm going to shoot. Right? Yeah. I can't do it because that's all I do. Everywhere there I go, I put on. Right? Them say, you love me, you complain, you put on tire, and you put in the car seat. That more is more boring because you don't see nothing else and people, because we kept doing the same job, people were just bored out of them skull and never want to work. People were getting sick. People were getting stressed from doing boring work. Right? And persons start they got their unions and the unions start to complain and say, you're dehumanizing people. So stop it. And so them stop scientific management. But scientific management has not really gone away. Yeah, we still have it in various forms, yeah, but it hasn't. So we talk about BPR and people are timing you and watch you, for example, and see how long it takes to do the process. It's because they want to come up with a better way to do the process than you, right? The only place you probably don't see stuff like scientific management is in Japan because Japan has a different culture. Japan practices worker participation. Alright, so we're talking about our theory X and theory Y. Japanese form is something called theory Z. Say the sum of the team is better than anything else than the individual parts. So let's work as a team. And Japanese companies like Toyota, for example, have things that they call quality circles, where they empower individuals from various sections within the organization to form a group to look at how best to do the job. And if they come up with a solution, they don't need management approval. They just go ahead and implement it. Yeah. So the manager, they find a team, that quality circle team appear ordinary workers. There's a story that is told about Toyota that says, for example, if there was a team of 10 persons doing a particular set of jobs, and they try to do more complete jobs than just doing pieces, and they were meeting particular targets, they would take one member from the team and assign him to another team. So that means 9 persons on the team. The 9 persons were to meet and exceed what the 10-member team used to do. And then ask management what to do, they must figure it because they are the ones doing the job. So it's the opposite of scientific management. Say the workers know best. Scientific management say the management knows best. And if the 9 accomplish that target, then take off one more is now 8. That must meet and exceed the 9. And you keep carrying it down. We never did reach one. Right? But they are empowering the staff, yeah. And it's a different culture. They are dependent on their staff. Western countries, like, for example, where we are from, USA and that kind of place, management and staff actually have this acrimonious relationship, right? So you don't want management don't want to empower the staff where now they become dependent on the staff because they are going to strike early and lock down the factory. All right, because they want more money. That not happening in Japan. Different culture. So it don't necessarily mean that we can pick up what is happening in Japan and necessarily bring it over to the West. So it's not easily translated. There are over other things that we need. Yeah. So that's the idea with scientific management, and it brought in these kind of things. So what persons were actually doing, and we look at because the jobs have been broken down to a very limited tiny parts. The suggestion now was that, you know what? Instead of you doing the tire every day, now I can do the chairs. And so you do the chair, you do the tire. And you get to drop in the engine because you were doing the body work earlier. And you would have the body work again to drop in. It's still boring. So job rotation was just moving from one monotonous job to another monotonous job. So now there are 2 jobs that I need, 2 jobs that I want to kill myself for. Alright? So still never did I help nobody. So let me say, alright, let's do something else. Let's do something that we call job enlargement. Now, job enlargement was just simply taking one or more monotonous job. Yeah. So it's like still monotony. Right? There's the story that said because your job is so monotonous, you didn't get any pride in it. So for example, you're out on the road, your son has been asking you, what is it that you do? And you said, so daddy, what do you do for me? And he said, I don't really want to say put on tie. So you say you build cars. So it's nice, and so innocent, you know. And you and your son left on the road and your son look and say, Daddy, that's one of the cars that you build. And you're not really, it's really just the time you put on. Right? And so, Daddy, what part did you build? And that you have to fight, you have to try to find a way because you say, why son I really be put on the tire? Right? And you know that I will just drop you down in front of your son. I say you can't do that. And I say, oh, you see that car there? I know it's mine. I see that car there? I know it's mine. I see that. You know, really a lie, you know. That you put on the tire for all of them. They kind of mislead your son. So when we moved from job enlargement and got into job enrichment now, we're saying now that individuals can take pride in their work. Individual can see a unit of work that is completed and belongs to them alone. Alright? So look at it. The job requires the use of a range of skills and talents. And all of these, many of these ideas are all coming from job. Task identity, the job includes all the tasks required to complete an identifiable product or process. So with job enrichment, I can now speak proudly to my son and say, yes, the chip that is in your iPhone, ta-da, Daddy did that. Right? But now if I tell us a little part in a little chip on the end, we can say the chip in the iPhone. I'm going to say, take up the iPhone, I say, a serial number, I might want that too, yes? Right? Make the whole iPhone. Alright, so now I have something that I can show my son. That is job enrichment. Yeah, that's how you have to defend it back to the day. Okay, I say, alright, son, yeah, don't look laugh after putting on inside that camera, so the car can't drive without it. So, a good work that may I do. Alright? But no, the task required to complete to complete an identifiable product or process. Look at this other one. It has significance. The job has impact on other people's lives or work. So you know something I have taught now? Because my job, what me I do, have impact on other people within the organization or outside the organization. So don't be proud. Alright? Autonomy. Workers have a degree of discretion in scheduling and organizing their work. And feedback. Workers are provided with information on the results of their performance. So job enrichment is significantly different from job rotation or job enlargement. Alright? And look on page 4, mention some of the things that will come from getting this. They will experience meaningful work, experience responsibility for outcomes and actual results. This in turn will create higher productivity and quality, high job satisfaction, and low absenteeism and leave turn. People now get sick by you. They want to come to work. Alright? Because I have to build this other iPhone today and I'm here building it. Alright? We mentioned the Japanese thing they have this I bring up in lead management. Lead management is not a part of our syllabus. But there's a picture where the Japanese individual, the person can stand up here or sit, but there's a chair there, and they can actually move around and swivel around. And so there's the under desk there is everything that they need to put that computer together. So it's not that I am putting in the motherboard in the computer. And then the next person I'll put in the hard drive, and the next person I'll put in the DVD player. In and do every single thing. So we're talking about that. He can say, is that PC there? Need it. Alright? But one of the things, for example, in these kind of centers, and something that we love to do in Jamaica and probably the Western world as well, we're going to have the desk and we're going to have the family picture on there, and this is not allowed in Japan. Because it's not your desk. Your family things belong on the desk and your yard where your work. Alright? This desk belongs to the company. So anybody can go there and don't feel cute. Don't feel cute in the office where you have to go sit on somebody else. Right? You just uncomfortable and keep a look for the other person will come back and take back the seat from you. It is no uncomfortable. Alright? You're just doing this thing for the company. It's not your personal place. Go out your yard, go look for your family. Alright? Alright? So we keep talking about the Japanese because the Japanese speaks to different approaches to doing things. Alright? Here's a thing that I also want us to just mention, just at the bottom of page 4 there, about ethics. So we're not getting into the ethics of P1 and that kind of thing there. But we still want to recognize that when you're thinking about designing jobs, making persons redundant, hiring persons, or breaking down the jobs into individual pieces, etc., etc., you still need to think about people. Remember, we are human beings. We have goals, we have ambitions, right? We don't want to be robots. Even though we were talking earlier about some theory that we don't like being robots, right? But really and truly, people want to know that they will make some contribution or something, that there's some value to their job. So bring that in as well. So don't treat people as a means to an end. Remember, they have their own ends. They have their own ambitions and goals that they want to accomplish. Alright? Look on page 5 when we talk about like competency framework, staff development, HR knowledge, all those things are what we call the fringe areas of the syllabus. You read them. Competency frameworks, for example, let me answer the question on it. But it's like one of those sprint years that you might get a little 2 or 3 mark question or 5 mark question from. So don't ignore them, read them. Many of you are aware of competency frameworks in the sense that you know about what do we're about here now, NCQ, beta, whatever it was hard to them do and blah, 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 right? And even ACCA, by the way, have been introducing competency frameworks, particularly starting from the lower levels, from the SIAs and that kind of thing. So when you complete these set of papers, you are now competent to do this type of job. And what competency framework, how competency frameworks can help an organization, it can help them in terms of recruitment, who to recruit. So if I know through some standards set up through maybe HART or ACCA, and I said I need an accounting clerk, I can look at what the competencies of an accounting clerk should be, and I put that in the ad, and I say these are the things, and if you have the things, then you are competent to do the job. All right. So it might be, for example, be able to prepare financial statements, write up trial balancing, whatever the story. So you list the set of competencies. And when it comes to now judging you and assessing you and thinking about whether or not I should promote you to the next level, if internally I have my own set of competency frameworks, it should be based on something that exists again, through art or ACCA, I can say, these are the set of skills that I'm looking for. Are you competent to apply for this position or to be promoted to this level? All right. So it helps. So that we know if we're doing the guesswork, it helps us to know specifically and to be fair. Because next time we probably think that it's just because I'm friend, that's why I'm give her the promotion, while me that have the skill them all along and da, 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 da. And then it kind of up in the air because we don't know what was really the competencies needed for the promotion. But she get it and we don't know if she get it. You cut out all that foolishness. Everybody know the competency framework from day one. Alright. Alright, so you can look at competency frameworks from those perspectives. Succession planning is also something that is very important in organization, and in particular in companies that are listed on the stock exchange, because you need to protect shareholders' interests. And you don't want to have that disruptive factor going in and that the CEO is retired or we don't want to move forward. So one of the things that is suggested is that you don't just train one person to take over, but you train a group because you train a cadre of individuals. Alright? Because when you have more than one person who can take over, chances are the operations will run a lot smoother. Alright? I remember that even as one of the traders, you can have something you get got ahead and then you go out in the market. Alright? But in terms of doing that succession side, the idea is that we want to keep consistency in the organization's strategy. Right? Organizations do not dramatically change their strategies. So for most organizations, what they're looking for is consistency. Alright? Take a look at it. I can just talk about all of those things. Because we're not going to go through it in great details, but I wanted to get a sense of how the examiner examine the topics that we just looked at. So take a look at the requirement. Analyze Sully Truin's leadership style before and immediately after the training course, and explain why the change of leadership style at ARC was unsuccessful. What does that mean to you?
So not showing some of course or something. And then you go outside the environment to a couple of them.
Right. So Sully is a guy, by the way. Right? So Sully Truin, we want to know, look at what it says. So this is going to guide your answer. And you need to tell me what his leadership style was before the training course. You know what it said there? Before. Don't ignore the before. You need to tell me what his leadership style was before and why leadership style was what it was and whether or not it was successful. Then now he went on the training course and something happened and he changed his leadership style. Then say what caused him to change the leadership style, what happened when he changed the leadership style, what made it unsuccessful when he changed his leadership style. Alright? So that should give you more than enough to get the 15 marks. Alright? But you're going to have to do 2 sections, before and after. Do not ignore the before and the after. Alright? And we're going to read the case because we're going to see we pick up a lot of number of things that we just talked about. But just before we read it, let's look at part B as well. Describe the principles of job enrichment and evaluate its potential application in the contracts office at ARC. You need to do 2 things there. That's all? Principles of job enrichment, which probably means that I need to briefly touch on job rotation and job enlargement. Alright? Because I want to say job enrichment is not just job rotation, just not a set of monotonous jobs, and not just bunching a set of monotonous jobs together, but, and then we look at the part, for example, that we had in terms of job enrichment, or again, at the bottom of page 3, that the job requires use of a range of skills, those are the principles of job enrichment. Alright? So that's all. And job enrichment is actually also one of the fringe areas. It's not an area that would be tested regularly or those kind of things. It's one of those fringe areas. Not always throwing a fringe area. Nobody can really predict which fringe area I'm not throwing because there are little minute areas that are really in the core syllabus. So they will always be there. But if you notice, this one is a fringe area. 10 marks. Most of the marks is on some area that examiner expects you to be comfortable with leadership. Alright? Alright, take a quick look at the case now. 10 years ago, Solitruin formed the academic recycling company, ARC, to offer specialized waste recycling service to schools and colleges. The company has been very successful and has expanded rapidly. To cope with this expansion, Sully has implemented a tight administrative process for operating and monitoring contracts. This administrative procedure is undertaken by the Contracts Office, who tracks that collections have been made by the field recycling teams. Sully has sole responsibility for obtaining and establishing recycling contracts, but he leaves the day-to-day responsibility for administering and monitoring the contracts to the Contract Office. He has closely defined what needs to be done for each contract and how this should be monitored. So it's like he might tell them what to do, eh? I needed to do this, he said, because workers in this country are naturally lazy and lack initiative. I found that if you don't tell them, just in case we never know, say I tell them exactly what to do and how to do it, then it won't be done properly. If you look at Solitruin in there, so it sounds authoritative, dictatorial, right? And then I tell them what to do, right? Him no invite no participation at all. Alright, him give instructions and close supervision. Alright? And here's that him call them lazy. Does that remind us of anything else? Here. So here's one of the things we're going to write when I say before he was authoritative. He told the staff what to do because he considered them theory extras. That means that they were lazy. So you get marks already, so the more it's a build up, you need to tell us before. Why did he adopt the attitude that he adopted. Alright? Most of the employees working in the contracts office like and respect Sully for his business success and ability to take instant decisions when they refer a problem to him. Some of ARC's employees have complained about his autocratic, see another word that you could have used there, his autocratic style of leadership, but most of these have now left the company to work for other organizations. Let's take a look at those last two sentences. Those who are working there still, they like him, they respect him, because he make decisions quickly. So it's not that them hate him. So even though Brad mentioned some dirty words here, autocratic, authoritative, da-di-da-di-da, the staff like him. Look at the staff who don't like him. What them they know? They are no longer there. Which means that if we go back to the Hershey and Blanchard case, you see the staff who might have been able and willing, where are they? They are not working there. You know who are working there? They want them who want you to tell to them unable to do it. So them why you tell them. Which means that they don't want to take on additional responsibility. The staff who wanted to take on additional responsibility gone. So bear that in mind. Look at the characteristics of the followers. Who is there now? People who want to be told. And then know what will happen when you're going to meet, when you're going to training course. Because everything was fine and hunky-dory, you know. People who never like it, they resign and down with their business. Alright? So what happened now? A few months ago, conscious that he was a self-taught manager, Sully enrolled himself on a week's course with Gap Mining, a training consultancy which actively advocates and promotes a democratic style of management. We have democratic there, which is the opposite of what he was before. Alright? So you never have to use authoritative because he was autocratic. Because he was autocratic in the case. Alright? But they are saying that democratic style of management, as a Gap Mining people, as a democratic, is the best way and the only way to go. Which conflicts with what we say about contingency, by the way. We say in contingency, there's no one best way. Alright? Autocratic might be fine, depending. Democratic might be fine, depending. Gap Mining said democratic is the way. Alright? The course caused Sully to question his previous approach to leadership. It was also the first time for 3 years that Sully had been out of office during working hours for a prolonged period of time. However, each night, while he was attending the course, he had to deal with emails from the contracts office listing problems with contracts and asking him what action they should take. Alright? He became exasperated by the employees' inability to take action to resolve these issues. He discussed this problem with his course tutors. They suggested that his employees would be more effective and motivated if their jobs were enriched and that they were empowered to make decisions themselves. Alright? So they must say, you need to make the job, probably the job monotonous or whatever they think, so no matter with the rotation or the enlargement, go for job enrichment. Which probably means that they will carry a contract all the way through from initiation to whatever. Alright? On his return from the course, Sully called a staff meeting with the contracts office, where he announced that from now on, employees would have responsibilities for taking control actions themselves, rather than referring the problems to him. Sully, in turn, was to focus on gaining more contracts and setting them up. However, problems with the new arrangements arose very quickly, as you can imagine. Fearful of making mistakes and unsure about what they should be doing, led to employees discussing issues amongst themselves at length before coming to a tentative decision. So they need to make a decision, a tentative one. The operational as the field recycling teams were particularly critical of the new approach. One commented that before, We got a clear decision very quickly. No decisions can take several days and appear to lack authority. The new approach also caused tensions and stress within the contracts office and absenteeism increased. But now I'm going to work to make a decision. Right? The bad one, I wasn't there when they decide to do X, Y, Z. Right? So everybody look for take themselves away. Alright? So if you notice it didn't work, and you start off, you must ask yourself, why didn't it work? It didn't work because look at the people who were there. And the case kind of suggested it. And people who were unable to do it, they cannot make decisions. They lack the authority, so they never even have the self-confidence to try it, yeah. Alright? So they were tired, it looked like they were somewhere between tell and sell because they're so unwilling and then so unable. Because they don't want to come at school, to come at the work, to come make the decision. Right? And they don't quite know what decision to make, so that he chat about it from here to eternity. Alright? So what Sully had done, after them come from the meeting, after them come from the trade, he moved the people there from Taylor, because it's just anyone from here, Taylor to delegate. Cannot be done. The people them would need time, and they probably would need to change the people them anyway too. Yeah. You probably have to change the people them. Because the original people them would have appreciated that style. They left, yeah. People would have appreciated that style, left the company. Alright? At the next staff meeting, employees in the contracts office asked Sully to return to his old management style and job responsibilities. We prefer the old Sully training, they said. The training course has spoiled you. You put ideas in your head. Reluctantly, Sully agreed to their request, and so all problems are being referred up to him. However, he's unhappy with this return to the previous way of working. He's working long hours and is concerned about his health. Also, he realizes that he has little time for obtaining and planning contracts, and this is severely restricting the capacity of the company to expand. Alright? So, so we see the problem? Yeah. He probably need new people. If you're really serious about it, probably need new people. Yeah. And what he needs to understand firstly is that based on what Hershey and Blanchard said, you cannot just move from tell straight to delegate. You need time. What the trip around this box is telling us is that it needs time. It needs training and probably need new personnel, new characteristics. Right? But in order to take them people here who all this time you have told me what to do, suddenly you're telling me, say me not know make decisions. Have no practice in it. People who did yesterday never take instructions from me suddenly now feel, as I said, well, you know give me instruction. And I taking the instruction from you. So the field people them say they're not taking instruction from you because you don't know like you don't know what I do. You don't lack authority. That is what. So what the examiner wants you to do, throw in a little bit of McGregor theory extras and say they were lazy people. Quote from the case that said he considered them to be lazy. Because he considered them to be lazy, he had to give them instructions every step of the way. He didn't ask them to participate to suggest anything. The persons who would have objected to his authoritative or his autocratic management style left the company. So it's literally it's only pure lazy people here. Alright? So that's why he developed that style there. When them go gap mining, tell them so there's one best way to run your company. That is to use a democratic style. Get the workers involved, let them participate, let them make mistakes, make decisions. Delegate it to them. But What gap mining is not recognizing is that contingency theory says there isn't any one best way to run things. You need to look at these three things that will bring these three things in our answers. Look at the characteristics of the manager. Look at Sully-Turin. Sully-Turin probably could have said he's an autocratic manager. But in truth and in fact, he's not. Because look how quickly changing management style. Alright? So which means that he can change his management style to fit any situation. Then look at the characteristics of the follower. The followers want to be told. Look at the situation. These are complex kind of things, a thing that requires experience. You have to have done it before. They have never done it before. They can't manage that. Alright? You use that to create your answer. That's why.
In the last paragraph there, where it's about that station is not sustainable.
It's not sustainable. You don't want to keep doing that, yeah. Well, notice that they didn't really ask us it there. If you look at all the requirements here, never read. But what you can do in terms of part A, make sure you answer what is relevant in part A first, and then you can probably add that he's obviously concerned about the situation, that he still has to keep telling the workers. If he wants to change something like that, then what it is going to suggest is that he'll have to gradually change out the staff. Alright? So where they can get to a situation that they that he can delegate to. He probably want to train them, but then it's not all of them are going to take on to it, so he's probably going to have to gradually change them out, yeah. Alright? HR have a thing that says if you can't change the staff, change the staff. If you can't change them, change them. Alright? So if all your training and they won't change, get rid of them then, bring in a new set. Alright? So if you can't change the staff, change the staff. And as I said, in terms of the principles of job enrichment, a lot of the first part has to be around. It's really knowledge stuff, and then kind of apply it to the case. Can it work at the contracts office? But them seem to be doing monotonous job now. Job enrichment would have probably allowed them now to do a lot of the things, probably including getting the contracts and setting up conditions for monitoring. That's Sully-Turin don't have to write anything and tell them anything. Those kind of things can come in as well. Alright? But a lot of this was almost because in the case, he never gave us much in terms of what we can pick from the case in terms of job enrichment used as examples. Right? He never really gave us a lot. So a lot of it for this one had to do with knowledge. Alright. Alright, so that's one of the things that we definitely needed to know in terms of what is there in class notes 10. Here's another thing that we need to know. And it's all between just page 6 and page 7. The types of change. Note the names of the individuals. Not that the examiner wanted to know, but when he wanted to use it, so he give the names there. And they are 2 women. And we don't have many examples of women in our history theories. Alright. So here are 2. Julia Balagon and Veronica Hope Haley. So we're going to shorten it and call it Balagon and Hope Haley. Alright? And they came up with this book, Exploring Strategic Change, published in 1999. And they suggested 4 types of change. The 4 types of change are shown on page 7. Alright? How do we arrive at the 4 types? So again, it's almost like our grids. 4 again here. We love grids with 4 stuff in there. Alright, it depends on the extent of the change and the speed of the change. We don't have high or low here, but we have other things. Transformational change or realignment speaks to the extent of the change. And when we talk about extent of the change, this is what makes it transformational versus not transformational. It is transformational if they change the business model. Yeah. Alright? So for example, they used to practice cost leadership and they are going into differentiation, transformational change. Alright? Realignment, on the other hand, is not transformational change because they probably just need to do certain things. Probably need to tighten up your efficiencies, collect your money faster, don't pay your money so early, them kind of things there. We call those realignment. Alright? And the speed of the change would be the other factor. And the speed can either be incremental or big bang. So we don't say high or low here, we just say incremental or big bang. Incremental is where the change can be done over time. There's no urgency to get the change done. We have lots of time to deal with the change. Big bang suggests that the change needs to happen now. Alright? Here's the criteria we use in P3 to determine the speed of change. Take a look at the situation. If the company is losing market share, and if the company is making a loss, particularly if it's making a loss. So look at those two things, losing market share and making a loss. If the company is making a loss, we need to do something now. Alright? We need to stop the loss. The loss is considered bleeding. We need to stop the bleeding. Alright? So we put those two together, the extent of the change and the speed of the change, we get these 4 types of change. Alright? We get evolution, which is transformational change that you do over time. So for example, organizations like banks may have looked and say, you know what, in the future everybody will get connected to the internet one way or the other, whether it be through their smartphones, smart tablets, right, rather than coming into the banking hall. So we need to change how we do our business. Alright? So we're going to offer banking services in a different way, an electronic way. Right? Nobody needs to physically come into the business anymore. But it's not going to happen right now. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to plan for it. So we're going to take our time and introduce internet banking. Alright? So we still have our regular banking services. And we will be right. And we introduce customers to it and get them to sign up to it because again, if they sign up early, chances are they're not going to switch to anybody anyway because you know how people steal and trust internet to begin with. So they get comfortable with one, then I will switch to the competitor. Anyway, the switching costs will be high. So because I'm planning it, so I'll make the change and I'll make the change in the future. But I start doing many other things now because there's no rush for me to do it now. It becomes evolution. Alright, so we call it incremental. Evolution is less risky and less costly to the opposite of it, which is revolution. Revolution now, imagine that, let's say the final day arrives where everybody's into internet banking. And then phone can have stuff like mobile money, right? So you don't need cash anymore. You probably don't even need physical credit card anymore, those kind of things. All you do is have your phone with you. Your phone, you have, if sometimes you will keep your phone in your pocket same way, you go up to the machine and ready to pay, and you pass it in front of the machine and the payment is settled. Alright? So everybody start doing that now. And you are the one bank whenever they think say, then think they're like that. They said, no man, this is not sci-fi foolishness. They said, no, I'm going to tell you now. Right? And the anytime it not happen, now happen now. You are now run the catch up. So now you have to go buy a system, you have to put it in, you have to test it. You are the last person, everybody has gone and migrate to other banks, you have been long time, you know no customer. Revolution. Revolution is like the name suggests. It is forced, it is bloody, it is expensive, and it may even cost you your company. You don't want a revolution. Trust me. Alright? You try to avoid revolution. Alright? The other ones in terms of realignment are adaptation and reconstruction. Adaptation, the change is undertaken to realign the way in which the organization operates, and it's done so over time. So you're not changing the basic premise of the business strategy not changing, but you probably need to do some tightening up, some more efficient sets of operations. Alright? And maybe you have time in which to do it. It's not something that you need to do now. Right? So probably you look at stuff like your margins and you realize that your margins have been declining, and you probably recognize why your margins have been declining. And you probably say we're holding too much inventory, and we need to move to a situation where we don't hold so much inventory. Alright? So we're probably going to move to probably something that will be a little bit more like a just in time. Alright? But we have time in which to do it, because we have time to find with suppliers, organize with systems, get the things to link in. Okay. Alright, in that case, we call it adaptation. Alright? Versus reconstruction now, where again we're not really changing our major business model, but we need to do some things. So maybe what has been happening is that our credit control, our credit management has gotten out of control, seriously out of control, way out of whack. And there's a number of things we need to do, and we need to do them now to fix it, right? We need to start come down hard on our creditors right away. We need to talk back to the payment section that has just been giving our money too early, right? You quickly go pay the suppliers. You pay the suppliers too early. What happened to you? Right? When we look at, for example, we end up borrowing too much money. So now we're highly geared, so we find a way now to cut down on this gearing, or to find a way to reduce interest costs. And we need to do it now, because our cash flow suggests that we can't maintain this thing here too long. Alright? So we need to act now. The minute you now need to act in a hurry, yeah, it means big bang. And in this case, it means reconstruction, as we need to make the changes now. Alright? So those are the 4 types of change. The examiner tests this area of the syllabus very often. So you need to make Balogun and Hope Healy your friend. Alright? If there's anything that you need to know, certainly in this, not in these notes, but also in D3, change management. And Hope Healy, or Balogun and Hope Healy, is it. There are other areas that you're supposed to know, yes, but you can't go in there and don't know Balogun and Hope Healy. Alright? But we're not finished with them yet, because they actually mention something. The contextual features of change. Their theory is based on the assumption that they say even though organizations may need change, change cannot be handled the same in organization A as it was handled in organization B. And the reason why the change cannot be handled the same is because A has a different contextual set of features than B. So you'll have persons, for example, who used to work at various organizations. And sometimes when they work at various organizations, they say, I want to do what I used to do at this organization. Right? I know a guy who was employed as the VP of one of the subsidiaries. And there was a system that he had wanted to implement at this other subsidiary at NCB. He used to work at BNS. And he said, when I looked at that system years before he came, I had done up a report and I said, we should reject the system, and we gave him reasons for wanting to have it rejected. Me don't forget, me the forget because I moved on to other things now and say manage a job now and things that means that we can go on the road as often as we want and and it quite work out that way there. Right? But we do up my report and that was years ago and forget everything about it. Some never know and I still have it on file. So he called me one day and he said, if I would change my report, and I said, why? Because the system that we use that I wrote in my report that can work at NCB, he implemented it at BNS and it worked at BNS. So he wanted to put it in at NCB. And I said, BNS is BNS. NCB, NCB, right? And my report was done 3 years ago and it was based on the factors that I saw 3 years ago and I can't change it. You are a VP. Right? You see, if you want to change it, you got to do up over another report, an investigation, and change it. If you want, you're a VP, you're a big position. But I'm not changing my report because that report was accurate 3 years ago. Yeah. And I tell you what, the guy has improved it since we said that don't really matter to me. Just go do over the thing if you feel it, go do it over. And I guess because that wouldn't change it, back off, right? Because he kept saying, if you work at BNS, it will work at NCB. Say if you work at BNS because of the characteristics of BNS. It doesn't mean that those characteristics exist at NCB. And this is what OPLA and Balagon. It's just that we never know the theory report we tell at the time. And we never know about Balagon and OPLA. I'm just saying it off the top of my head. But if I knew that there was a Balagon and OPLA, I would have quoted it. Right? And Balagon and OPLA says, every change is different because these, I think it's 8 of them, 8 contextual features are different for each organization. The examiner expects you to know what these 8 contextual features are. Sometimes in Pivot 4, and ask if you discuss the 4. Sometimes you just leave it empty, which means that you discuss 8 or whatever number you can find in the case that is relevant. Alright? So here are, I'm going to leave out time and scope for a reason. I'm coming back to those. So let's start at preservation. And here's how you answer the question we're talking about. So if I'm asking for using and preservation is one of them that you're going to discuss, you write something that says they need to understand what areas or what skills or what individuals, etc., they need to preserve at the organization after the change has taken place. All right? So maybe the organization is known for, let's say it's known for its customer service or it's known for its marketing or its brand image, anything like that. It's when the change happens, we still want to have an organization that gives good customer service. So what do we need to preserve? We need to preserve that kind of thing, the good customer service, which probably means we need to preserve the individuals who offer it or the mechanisms, the training, the whatever that we put in place so that they get the good customer service. All right, so that would be the preservation. It speaks to what you need to preserve once the change has been completed. All right. Next, it looks at diversity. How varied are the experiences? There is a train of thought that says if individuals in the organization have different experiences, change is easier to implement. All right? But if you all have the same set of experiences, it means that you have never experienced change before. So you're going to be afraid of change and worried about it. All right? Yeah. When the redundancy thing was happening, there was a guy who worked at the office and he said, well, if I get redundant, that'll be my second redundancy. Right? When I was made redundant, it so happened that there were some school friends that come in, I think it was a chance that just happened and support, and a bunch of us had said, because we hadn't seen each other, most of them live overseas, and I said, let's go glorious, and we did it. Everybody, I tell what I'm doing, blah, 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 and we said, well, up to recently, I worked at the National Commercial Bank because I was very redundant. And this guy looked at me and said, don't worry about that, Tanya. It's about 6 times we get redundancy. Right? I mean, I look at me, I get redundancy from that 1 year. No. So the idea is that imagine if you have a bunch of those persons in the workforce where people are nervous, right? And they can say, life goes on. Been there, done that. See that? Don't be still alive. And the same thing happened to you, you're still alive. Right? Versus nobody has ever experienced it and everybody start here. And you know you have some little people out there will find the worst thing and they will say, yeah, but I read about it from somebody on Facebook and they say redundancy is a horrible thing and then know everybody starts panicking and go home and can't sleep at night time and you don't know what. Alright? So it is said that when it comes to diversity is preferred. Now when you're reading the case, even though we have talked about diversity is preferred, it's not what we prefer in our answer. Just read the case. Do they all have the same experiences? If that's your observation, you're right that they all have the same experiences. This will make the implementation of the change more difficult, and that's what you're right. Yeah. So for example, it mentioned that they have all worked at the same place for all of their lives. There's an example as a handout that I'll soon look at on the back. I just gave the requirements. In that case, as I mentioned there, in that particular case, I can tell you that part of the case, it said that everybody there who worked at the company, Captain Haddock, they had to go through the Captain Haddock Academy before they get a job. So they were trained in the Captain Haddock way. You see the people who turned supervisors, the people who turned managers, and the people who were on the board, they all worked at Captain Haddock. So that's what we mean about them all having the same experience. That's what we mean. Alright? So they don't know anything but the Captain Haddock way. Alright? So that now will make change. Yeah. It's like one culture and experience and experience. It's like you would live in a Jamaica all your life and not live nowhere else, and so it becomes difficult for you to acclimatize because you've only had that one experience. Right? So that is a diversity, the capability, not to be mixed up with the capacity. You need to speak to both of them. Again, as I said, I'll let the examiner pick the four that they wanted to talk about. So the capability, what is the managerial and personal capability to implement change? You look at capability from two perspectives. From the company requiring the change and the company that may have bought the company and want to institute the change. Now when this is happening, change is happening because we're doing an acquisition or something like that. And so you might have an acquirer and an acquiree. So let's say the acquiree is the company that has been purchased. Have the management of that company ever had to manage change in their managerial experience? If they have never had to manage change, you're going to write, they have never managed change, and they don't have the ability to manage change. Having said that, don't stop there. Go to the acquiring company now and see if the acquiring company have the managerial skills. And you'll probably say, this is not their first acquisition. They have done acquisition a whole lot, so they're used to managing change. If it's their first acquisition, say, we're not sure if they know how to manage change either, because this is their first acquisition. All right? So look at capability from two perspectives, the acquirer and the acquiree. All right? The capacity. What is the degree of change resource available? For the most part, for this, we kind of look at it in terms of money, but resource don't mean money at all. All right? But for the most part of it, we look at it in terms of money. Do we have the money, the funds necessary to make the change, to carry the change through? Because remember, if I do things, I give you the example about the company that was needed to go internet banking because everybody has gone left them. That's take money. Alright? And now if we go train individuals and get marketing people go out there to go sell, that's take money. Do we have the money to implement the change. And again, for this one, we look at it from two perspectives, the acquirer and the acquiree. Does the company that has been acquired have the funds to make the change? Chances are they don't. But maybe the company that bought them out, and we kind of expect that the company that bought them out should have the money to put the change process through. Alright, so we're going to write saying, no, them don't have the money, but the persons who buy them out have the money. That kind of thing. Alright? Readiness. How ready for change are the staff? We need to ask this question, and this now only I look at it from the company that has been acquired perspective. So apart is the only time where we look at other people's perspective is the capability and the capacity. Oh, and we also look at it for the power. Alright? But for readiness, we're looking at it from the company that has been acquired. Is the staff at that company ready for the change? How do we know? Look at what the man would say in the case. Here's what he loves to set up. He might tell us that people who cause the problems that requires the change have left the company. If they leave the company, that kind of means they're ready. Or you may have a case where they say you have these people who used to talk about it and say, no, we're not going to do anything like that, and then they resign and then gone. The minute they resign and gone, the voices who are against the change, if they are no longer there for whatever reason, it means they are ready for the change. Read also in the case. Did he say the staff says, I just wish somebody else come and buy out the company and start the things out because this thing are driving me crazy now. We can't buy it no more. That doesn't like people, did? They just want things settled down. And most of the time when you do your 9 to 5, you know, the management decision making part of it. And then stupid people at the top don't want to decide what to do. You just want somebody to just go and settle it because guess what? I want to hold on to my job. So I want somebody to come and settle it. So read the case. If it says that they are ready, somebody to just come, take control, the staff is ready. Alright? And the last one, I said I'll go back to the other two. The last one, the power. What power does the change leader have to impose change? Generally speaking, we can look at it from the two sides, as I mentioned, for capability and capacity, right? But in the end, it'll come back to the company that buys it. You no longer own your company. I now own it, all right? So I have the power. And in most cases, the answer for this is that the person who now owns the company has the power to change the company. You're not the boss anymore, you're just sold the majority share of the company. So you can't vote against me. If I want to change, I can put the change. Alright? Now, the times when he has asked you about turn it off for it to adjust it. Keep it down for the time. Alright, so let's go back to the first two. You notice what the first two, does it look familiar? Time scale, how quickly is the change needed? And scope, what degree of change is needed? These are the same as the extent of the change and the speed of the change. That's why I left them for last. Alright? So sometimes what he will do is ask you about the types of change, which is the 4 types, or sometimes he'll speak to you about the contextual features of change. In this case now you need to talk about all of them, including bringing time and scope. What I would do in terms of my answer, if I start with time, I would follow it by scope, and then I will put time and scope together and give you the 4 types of change. So as long as you're discussing time and scope, guys, the 4 types of change must come into your answer. Even though the question might very well have said, look at what we have in our handout there, Um, if you look on page 2 of the handout that I just gave you, B says, Shoal PLC explicitly recognizes that there is no one right way to manage change, which is true, which is what O'Haley and Balaban says. It believes that the success of any planned change program will depend on a clear understanding of the context within which change will take place. Identify and analyze, using an appropriate model, the contextual factors that will influence how strategic change should be managed at Captain Haddock. Note, so if I'm talking about contextual factors, it is these. Alright, these 8. But when you're talking about these 8, you're going to talk about time and you're going to talk about scope. Right after you talk about time and scope, you put the two of them together and said they can give you this type of change. Alright? And I will just quickly mention the 4 and say which one is appropriate to the company. So generally speaking, I normally leave these 2 for last so that I have that at the end rather than at the beginning. Alright? And then I talk about the other 6. Alright? So once it is a question about the contextual features or factors or whichever term you use, it's all of them, but 2 is going to give us 4. The first 2 will give us 4. Now you can't talk about the first 2 and don't mention the 4. Alright? That's the technique that can require. Note that when once you're talking about the first 2, you must bring in the 4 types of change. Alright, now if no but, that's how you want it, and that's how you answer it. Alright? there is a couple of questions that he has asked on contextual features of change after subsequently. The one after this, he picked out 4, and the 4 were time, scope, and I think he gave you readiness and one of the C's, one of the capacity or capability. So if you notice, he gave you time and scope so that you needed to talk about the 4. Then now, more recently, I think it might have been in June 2014, he gave students a diagram. And in the diagram, he drew all 8 of them. So he didn't even have to remember the names. And then he said, tell me about them in the situation of that company XYZ. Some students were shocked because they said, when I read the requirements, I thought I had to remember them, but then I saw them, so I was wondering if he wasn't up to any tricks or something like that. He wasn't up to any trick, he just named it. Right? So it looked like he's not about trying to force you to necessarily remember the 8, but just make sure you know the 8 of it. Right? So either do it in 2 ways these days. He will give you the full 8 or pick 4. And a pick 4 I can tell you time and scope will be in that 4. Alright? So look out for those. As I said, be very comfortable with it and know how to pick them out in the case. Look seriously. When you look at the time scale, if he's giving you data that speaks to the company making a loss, then it's big bang. The time scale is now. If it looks like give it not financial data, but you mention that the company may be losing money or that is a lose market share, it's falling way behind its competitors, so they really need to make a change now. Again, it means big bang. So it needs to be done now. Look to see if you mention in the case that they need to change their business model. The business model is how they are doing things. Right? It's a strategy that they are approaching. Note that if you change your business model, it also means that you need to change your culture. Alright? So if it sounds like it's a cultural change, then it's transformational, not realignment. Alright? So think about it. If I had a bunch of customer service reps that were serving cost leadership, that our strategy was cost leadership, and so we are selling cheap things. Alright? Imagine downtown, the downtown store named Bashko. Alright? The customer service persons down at Bashko. Do you think they can do the same job as a customer service reps at PriceSmart? Different approach, different business model, different culture. If that's what they were used to doing all this time, it don't mean that we can tomorrow switch them around and they do the same job differently. Alright? Different approach. And it does sometimes don't even happen with totally different companies, because when I look at there are some companies in the States, for example, I went to New York and this was at Marshall's. And generally, I guess Marshall's try to maintain the same kind of customer service, but what they do in the Bronx, they don't do in upstate New York. In the Bronx, people also try to trick them and thief them. In upstate New York, you're not expecting people to do that, so you kind of allow people more. So the way you can respond to people in the Bronx, you can't respond to the people that in New York that way. Because uptown people versus downtown people, that kind of thing. Alright? So look at that kind of thing. Changing strategy normally means not only that you just change your strategy, but change your culture. Alright? Alright, so here is the other thing that I want us to look at. Look on page 9. So I said we will look at 3 things tonight, and this is the third and final thing. And there's a heading there that says change management levers. What is it that forces organizations to change? And we're looking at a particular one. Look at the word that we have there. You see it? Turn around. Don't forget that word. If your P3 examiner uses it in a requirement, this is what they expect you to answer. Most persons ignore the word turn around and pick up say it means something in a P3. It means something in a P3. We call it turnaround strategies. And normally we're turning you around because, look at what we mentioned, we've been needed in businesses in terminal declines and facing closure or takeover. So we're looking at like you're losing market share, like I mentioned earlier, or you're making a loss. Then you need turnaround strategies. And cost reduction and revenue generation strategies become very important. All right? So here's the very first thing you need to do for turnaround. Crisis stabilization. And I always call it stopping the bleeding. You need to stop the bleeding. All right? And crisis stabilization includes 2 things. Reducing your cost and increasing your revenues. All right? So you look at ways that you can increase your revenue, like for example, adjusting your marketing mix, look at your pricing policies, those kind of things. And look at ways that you can reduce your cost. And look at one of the first things we have in there in terms of reducing your cost. Cut labor costs and cut senior management. And in Jamaica, we know that we love to cut labor costs and really cut the senior management in here. Right? Improve productivity, look at stricter cash controls, reduce inventory, cut unprofitable products and services, anything like that that can reduce your cost. Look on the second page, page 10, and we talk about some other things. Make management changes. Alright? Remember, one of the reasons why we're suggesting making management changes is because we are of the firm belief that the management which got you in the problem are not the ones to take you out of the problem. Because firstly, they won't even admit that there's a problem. And when they admit there's a problem, they won't admit that them will cause the problem. So how we have to fix the problem? Alright? Talk with your stakeholders. Look at your key stakeholders group, look at your employees, look at your providers of finance and your suppliers and all them kind of people there and talk to them. Right? You'll probably need extended credit from your creditors and those kind of things. Alright? Pay attention to target markets. So have a clear focus on appropriate target market segments. Concentration of efforts, so resources should be concentrated on the best opportunities to create value. So one of the things it normally means that we look at our product range and we try to probably, if we're producing 10 products in a crisis, we can't continue to produce 10 products. You know much inventory that are there, and that much inventory. So now we'll look at the ones that are really the most profitable, and so we'll probably drop 10 down to something like 4. All right, concentration. Look at the 4 most profitable. And depending on how much loss you have, maybe you have to cut it down further. That's why it's probably not even 4, probably about 2. Alright? Look at financial restructuring. Do I have too much in debt financing? So can I find a cheaper source of funds? Are the shareholders likely to put in some more money at the company if we tell them the company have a fail? If them don't do something now. Because remember, at least when they put it in down, we don't really have to pay them a dividend or interest. You're going to have to. Alright, so we can look at that. And of course, you need to prioritize. You can't do everything one time. You have to figure out which ones you need to do first. So should I cut down my products first? Should I restructure my funding first? Should I lay off staff first? What should it be? You need to figure out. I assume that's one of the things that you need to do first at all times is to cut the cost. Right? Followed by increase your revenue and everything else coming up there. I think you probably need to get rid of management or somewhere in the so. Alright? So those are the turnaround. And just in case you might think that you're not really ask me anything about that and mention the term, look again on page 2 and look at B part 2. Look at how the examiner squeezed it in. Once the acquisition is complete, Shoal PLC wish to quickly, see the word, turn around Captain Haddock and return it to. So even without reading the case, I know that this is a company making a loss. So it is in crisis and it needs turnaround strategies. So always look out for the word turnaround in E3. It means one thing and one thing only. And the answers we are going to suggest are on pages 9 to 10. And you won't need to write all of them. Alright? You'll probably need to talk about reduction in cost, increase in revenue, change in management, and probably concentration of your efforts of not producing so many products. Alright? However, don't go suggesting change in management. You have to be careful with one there. Not that it's wrong enough, but he may very well have written in the case that all the managers have resigned. Then why are you suggesting to me that them change the management? Management out of the question already. You might say, see, I just swat it in the book, right? And you know, recognize that me take out one of the things down already so that don't leave you with 4 something to talk about. And you remember, it was alright. Alright? So pay attention to the case and see if him say that the manager has resigned already or anything like that. If the managers have not resigned yet, then they are right back. Change management. Alright? And the reason why we have to change management again is because the management who gets you the problem are unlikely to be the ones who are going to leave you out the problem. Alright? So that is it as far as the main areas in class notes 10 are concerned. Leadership, change management, and turnaround strategies. So what's next for us now that we have finished the syllabus? Lots and lots of hard work now. So starting next week, and all weeks leading up to and our end of our class before workshop, we're going to have a knowledge quiz. All right, so next week we're getting a knowledge quiz, about 10 questions or something like that, just to test you in terms of your knowledge. I won't be collecting the papers, something for you. We'll discuss it. You'll keep the paper, you'll mark it. All right, and we're also going to have a test. Now, the test part of the test is to get you ready in terms of the techniques. All right. So it's not necessarily so much about, even though that is an important aspect of it, whether you know things or not. It's about the techniques. All right. So we're going to give you time pressure and get you to apply the techniques. And the third thing that we'll be doing in our remaining session is to look at some past data questions. All right. So it's going to be action time. Right? You can't keep your eyes off the screen because you don't want to miss anything. Right? Dramatic tension filled moments. Right? To keep you on the edge of your seat. Alright? So we're going to do quite a bit, as I said, starting next week. I think we have about 3 weeks remaining before the 4 weeks before the end of the month. Alright, and then we'll go straight after that now into our workshop, and then we'll come back from the workshop to wrap up with the market. Alright, sounds exciting? Yay!